What if the war didn't end? It just slipped into the shadows. What if silence isn't peace, but the loudest cry we've learned to ignore? And what if the headlines moved on, but the human heart never did? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the beginning of a mindful investigation, one that peels back the layers of collective forgetting to uncover a truth too uncomfortable to hold, yet too important to abandon. As global news cycles shift and the world chases the next urgent thing, something deeper remains quietly, persistently. Pain does not follow the pace of politics. Wounds don't close just because the cameras turn away. And the silence left in their place, it grows, it thickens. It begins to feel like absence, but it's really avoidance. This video is not a political argument. This is not a broadcast of who's right or wrong. This is a compassionate pause, a turning inward. A soft but honest invitation to look again, not at war as we think we know it, but as it lives on in nervous systems, in broken homes, in memories that still burn. Because behind every official statement, behind every truce, every ceasefire, and every diplomatic handshake, there are faces. There are mothers and children. There are men walking through rubble, not just outside, but inside themselves. There are souls suspended, caught in the gray space between surviving and breaking. And in a world desperate for resolution, we risk abandoning the very thing that makes us human: presence. Here at Mindful Way Television, we believe in asking the questions that make us pause, that reawaken, that heal. Because sometimes, the most important response isn't to declare, but to wonder. And that wondering leads us directly into what happens when the illusion cracks, when someone reappears on the stage of world politics, and with them, reawakens what we thought we'd buried. Let's move now to explore what Trump reawakened in Ukraine, and perhaps in us. Picking up from where we left off, when illusions crack, and we are finally forced to feel, what do we discover? That war has never only been about borders, weapons, or politicians. Some wars don't erupt with explosions. They unfold in silence. Not every war leaves behind rubble and headlines. Some wars are quieter, fought behind closed doors, in the private rooms of memory, in the nervous systems of people who smile in public but weep in the dark. There is the mother who lays her hand on a photograph instead of her child. There is the father who never had a chance to say goodbye, whose guilt becomes a constant companion. There is the refugee who has learned to carry grief in invisible bags, shoulders hunched not from weight, but from remembrance. These battles do not make it onto the evening news. They are not featured in press briefings or viral tweets. But they are real as the heartbeat that quickens with a siren, as real as the nightmares that visit long after peace is declared. Ukraine, in this light, is not just a place on a map. It becomes a symbol, a mirror, reflecting something we often don't want to see: what happens when empathy erodes. When the sacred act of witnessing is replaced by passive scrolling. When we forget that behind every statistic is a soul trying to stay whole. Mindfulness doesn't ask us to fix. It asks us to feel, to remain present with what hurts, to resist the urge to look away, and instead gently, courageously stay. So ask yourself, what unspoken pain are you carrying? What story in you is still waiting to be heard? As we move into the next part of this reflection, we'll explore what happens when peace is declared on paper but not felt in the body. We hear the words again and again: ceasefire, peace talks, reconstruction, recovery. Words that imply resolution. Words that governments and media use to signal closure, to mark an end. But the body does not speak that language. Children who grow up beneath air raid sirens whose lullabies are punctuated by the rumble of distant explosions do not know what reconstruction means. They only know what fear feels like when it roots itself in the nervous system. Soldiers may return to their homes, but the battlefield echoes in their bones, in the way they flinch at certain sounds, in the silence they carry into the dinner table, in the dreams they can't shake. Elderly women sit in dim corners and pray for safety, not because they expect miracles, but because it is the only thing they can still do. Meanwhile, the world keeps scrolling. And maybe that's the most haunting image of all. Not the war itself, but the speed at which we move on. Closure from the outside may seem clean and convenient, but within the body, within memory, within trauma, truth is messier, more persistent. It does not conform to headlines or political timelines. At Mindful Way Television, we don't believe healing means forgetting. We believe healing means integration. It means holding space for contradiction, for progress and pain to coexist. It means listening again and again until even silence begins to speak. And perhaps most importantly, it means slowing down enough to feel, to breathe, to ask not, is it over? But where does it still live in me? When political figures like Trump speak about ending war, the words land heavy. They spark headlines, evoke reactions, stir division. But beneath the noise, a deeper question whispers, what does it actually mean to end a war? Is peace just the absence of gunfire? Is it measured by treaties and negotiations? Or does true peace require something far more intimate and far more difficult? To end a war is not to erase it. It's not to suppress the memories, avoid the grief, or dismiss the pain as past. That isn't peace. That's bypass. Ending a war, from a mindful perspective, is about turning back toward the wounds we tried to forget. It's about acknowledging everything that was buried. The trauma, the chaos, the people, the costs. It's about facing what still aches. Real peace doesn't show up on breaking news. It grows quietly like wildflowers through cracked concrete. It grows in homes where conversations are finally had. In therapy, rooms where silence is finally broken. In memorials where names are not lost to history but spoken aloud. True peace is holding grief in both hands and not rushing it to leave. It's lighting a candle not just for the fallen, but for those still breathing yet struggling to live. It's saying, we remember you, we see you, and we're not going anywhere. At Mindful Way Television, we believe peace is not a moment. It's a practice, a slow return to humanity, through honesty, through softness, through presence. Next, we'll return to the breath, to stillness, to what it really means to come home to the present after chaos. Let's breathe here. Not to escape, not to numb, but to return gently, truthfully, to the present moment. Breathe in the sorrow. Breathe out the denial. Breathe in the ache of everything you've witnessed or chosen not to. Breathe out the stories that told you to move on too soon. Grief is not weakness. It's not a detour from strength. It's a sacred portal, a doorway we pass through when we dare to feel fully. And feeling doesn't make you fragile. It makes you real. There are people, right now, rebuilding from ashes, not because they've forgotten what happened, but because they've remembered what still matters. Their courage isn't loud, it's quiet, consistent, rooted. They carry loss and hope in the same hands. Even in suffering, there is still space for beauty. A sunrise over a ruined city, a child's laughter in a shelter, a tear shed in silence that says, I'm still here. So what do we learn from Ukraine and from all wars that leave invisible marks? We learn that presence is not passive. It is an act of defiance in a world addicted to distraction. We learn that remembering, staying, breathing through the discomfort is how we return to wholeness. And as we prepare to close, we'll offer not just a conclusion, but an invitation, one that echoes beyond borders, timelines, or political speeches. Stay with us. One breath more. The war isn't over. Not out there, not in here. But maybe, just maybe, something gentle can begin if we stop pretending it's already healed. This video wasn't meant to stir outrage or point fingers. It was meant to open space, to soften the walls around our hearts, to ask the one question we often avoid. What does it mean to truly be present in a world that's still hurting? If something inside you stirred even just a little, honor it. Stay with it. Let it breathe. Share this with someone who needs to feel less alone. Leave a comment, not for the algorithm, but for the connection. Tell us what moved you or what you're still wrestling with. Your voice matters here. And if you're ready to go deeper, we invite you to keep walking with us. Watch our next reflection. Mindfulness in a war zone. How to stay present in chaos. Because at Mindful Way Television, we don't offer quick fixes. We offer quiet truths. We hold space for you, for us, for the world. Let's not rush the healing. Let's honor it. Let's keep walking the mindful way,